A religious life should not take pride in mere philosophy or dogma alone, but should reach into our daily lives to transform our seemingly independent, isolated existence and make it one in the Buddha's great light and compassion. To be able to give thanks for the blessings of being born into human life, to hear the Dharma, and thus to promote peace, give comfort, live responsibly. So saying the Nembutsu becomes our true religious life. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Well, thank you for, at the risk of your lives, joining us this morning. Yeah. Actually, there is this saying by the person that we consider the founder of this school of Buddhism, Jodo Shinshu, who went by the name of Shinran, that made that statement when he was addressing some followers who had traveled from the northern part of Japan, northeastern part of Japan, down to Kyoto, where Shinran was living. And they came down apparently to find out some of the basic insights of the teachings that apparently they've gotten confused about, because they're all kind of different interpretations. So, and this was 800 years ago. So anyway, there was no Shinkansen, no conveniences that we take for granted today. So at the risk of their lives, in other words, by foot, they traveled, I think it was about the distance from here to LA, about 600 or so miles. And they came to find out directly from Shinran some of these points that I guess they were not clear about, and so their various opinions and ideas. And his response was, at the risk of your lives, you have come here to ask me about these concerns about your spiritual religious life. But as far as I'm concerned, I just say the Nembutsu and trust myself to Amida Buddha, just as I learned from my teacher, Honen. Beyond this, if you want to get those details or get those kind of doctrinal clarifications, you can go to ask the scholars. But for me, I just entrust myself to Amida Buddha. Beyond this, there's nothing else that I need. Okay? So anyway, that was the reflection that, well, basically you're here because you didn't know any better. Right? So we tried to reach out to our regular attendees to let them know. So I guess the message got out pretty well, except Peter. Anyway, so yeah, so because you made the effort and joined us this morning, we went through the traditional ritual that we do on the second Sundays. It's a dedication to those past members who passed away in this month. And so anyway, that's the ritual part. And then other than that, the congregation is invited to do group readings, sing songs, and basically spend this time of reflection together as a community, as a Sangha. Okay? And so various causes and conditions brought you here this morning. So that's, I think, a very special, auspicious, significant thing, that we are here together to just reflect, which is the basic idea of our gatherings, is just to stop and reflect upon our life in the light, we would call it, of the Buddhist teachings, or in other words, we use the term Dharma, as a reference to how we can understand and appreciate our life. And this is a basic spirit of our tradition. It's to appreciate the fact that we were born into human life, not biologically, but we could say spiritually, because we see it as an opportunity for the basic goal of Buddhism, okay, which in a word, I think of it as to wake up, to become Buddhas, awakened beings. And that's not just for our own individual advantage or benefit, but it's for the sake of everyone together. Because the basic insight of Buddhism is that we're all in this together. No one's to be excluded. And we receive that awareness, in some ways, teacher's explanation, as being embraced in boundless compassion. This is the heart of our Shin Buddhist tradition. And this is the basis, as I've been taught, of this simple gesture of joining our palms together in front of our hearts to express this spirit of oneness, of life. And orally, we express it with this phrase, Namu Amida Butsu, the Japanese transliteration of an Indian expression, Namo Amitabha Buddhaya. I take refuge in the spirit of boundless light and life, wisdom and compassion, in oneness. So the Namu part is this foolish being, or this finite, fallible entity I think of as myself. But realizing how limited, how powerless I am, I have this sense of inspiration, encouragement, of entrusting myself in that which is beyond this finite, fallible, mortal being, immeasurable life. And so Namu Amida Butsu is the way we affirm that sense of being embraced in boundless compassion, in gratitude. And so this is the gesture that began in India to convey that realization of our oneness. Together, we share this life in gratitude. And so, ironically, it becomes a very practical way of acknowledging and greeting each other rather than the customary Western thing of shaking hands. So we just gasho to each other. Yeah. So I'm guessing maybe thousands of years ago when this custom began, people might have had a similar situation where you better not touch each other. So just go ahead and greet each other by placing your palms together. Okay. So again, as I was chanting, I should have been concentrating on the chanting, but my mind wanders. And I was just thinking, I wonder what people were doing in the 1900s when that, what do you call, global Spanish flu, epidemic was happening. Because it was interesting, if we look at temple records, it's a distinctly increase in number of deaths in that particular time frame. And so this was a global epidemic at the time. And so I don't know what measures they might have had and how they would figure out what to do to so-called protect each other from that virus. And here we are, centuries later, still in the same situation of being subject to illness. Yeah, and that's what Shakyamuni Siddhartha encountered. Aging, sickness, death are just inherent part of the human, or not human, but just the biological condition of life. Everything is subject to aging and dis-ease and change called death, the universal condition of all existence. So we all share this together. And so human beings, as much as we're so arrogant to presume we have some kind of superior status in existence, are just as vulnerable, just as subject to those realities. But it is that reflection or that awareness of it that begins to stir something within us, to seek something beyond, or to realize something beyond just that fact, that cold, hard reality of aging, sickness, and death. And that is what we can call the spiritual or religious mind, being, I, what have you, of awakening. We call it the Buddha nature. It's our spiritual nature to wake up. And that is what this tradition we are a part of or questioning, for me anyway, provides a response to the basic question of wondering, what does this moment in eternity mean after all? And so to appreciate or to receive it as an opportunity for awakening, to so-called break out of this aimless cycle, they describe it as, of birth and death, samsara. To break out of the cycle of samsara is how the teachings of the Buddha have been presented. So, that state of breaking out, the liberation, is what we call nirvana. Nirvana, or using other terminologies, the Pure Land, the realm of immeasurable light and life, in which our awakening is experienced not as a belief or concept or dogma, but as a sense of being. Sense of being. And it is that sense of being that gives us the so-called meaning of having been born into human life in gratitude. So, that's the reflection. That's the way that we try to live each moment, each day, with that awareness of our indebtedness, with this sense of being sustained by immeasurable life that never dies. Okay? This body, this me, has to die. Because as I was talking with Leo earlier, I've read somewhere where cancer cells are cells that have developed that forget how to die. So as a result, they lose that function and they keep multiplying. And that's what complicates our biological condition. And so, in a very cynical way, I've had the thought that human beings are like cancer cells on planet Earth. And so the various disasters, the various diseases are actually antibodies trying to clear away all the things that are creating the environmental and the social conflicts that are infecting the planet. And that's not very funny if you look at it in some perspectives. But at the same time, it made us become more appreciative of that irony, of that situation. Yeah, that's part of appreciating both the joys and the sorrows, the fortunes and misfortunes. So this is another talk we were having about. You know, there's a saying about misfortune and fortune. They come in pairs. And then there's this famous story, or I think it's a popular story, about one day there's this family that's having a very difficult time surviving. And then one day a wild horse just happens to trot onto their farm. And then they were overjoyed how fortunate it is that we have this animal that we can use to help with our planting and our work on the farm. And so the son, he decides that he's going to try to tame and train the horse so that it can become a workhorse for the farm. And in that course of doing that, he has an accident. He falls off the horse, and the horse kicks him, and he's very seriously injured. So all of a sudden, the fortune of having this horse becomes the misfortune that caused the son's injury. But then soon after that, it happens that a war breaks out. And then the people of the village or these soldiers come onto the family farm, and then they were drafting all the able-bodied young men in the village. But fortunately now, the son, because of his serious injury, is exempt. And so again, that was a story that kind of illustrates this idea of, who's to say what's fortune, what's misfortune. And then even the idea, is always changing. So, the misfortunes of this epidemic that's developing, in some respects, it is very serious because it is putting us at, biologically anyway, medical risk to end our life. But in other respects, it's making us a little more aware of the truth. And to me, one way to look at this is to see the truth of our interdependency. The fact is, we take it for granted. I mean, there's so much we take for granted, just our breath, just our everyday functioning without having to be all freaked out about viruses and germs, all these invisible things happening around us. But it is helping us, I think, to become a little more appreciative of our health, of having the means to sustain our life, and to have a certain peace of mind. And this sensitivity and awareness of our life is what I think is the religious engagement, the spiritual engagement, is to have this sensitivity or awareness about being alive by virtue of the innumerable causes and conditions from one moment to the next, having no way of knowing how it might change. But if that sense is realized, then you might say our life has had meaning, has had a sense of purpose. To be alive is to awaken. And to awaken is to be free of all the various things that hound us. So, the last thought I just remembered, because actually I just forgot what I was thinking of just a moment ago. So I just kind of trying to ramble around figuring if I can catch that thought again, but I didn't. So anyway, the last thing I like to use this metaphor is seeing ourselves as being like waves on the surface of an ocean. And just like a wave develops due to causes and conditions and has the form that's constantly moving and eventually fades from the surface. Okay, so those are the waves. So we're like the waves or ripples. And then this is my newest acronym, FOAM, F-O-A-M. Okay, and feeling. Okay, FOAM, F-O-A-M, feeling either aversion or attraction. Feelings of, attraction or aversion, mind. Okay, so feeling of, F-O-A, either attraction or aversion, mind. So those are the thought bubbles, the foam that develop in our heads. Feelings of attraction or aversion, okay? And mind, those thoughts that come up on the surface of our consciousness. So that's the stuff that we generate in our heads. And they could either be attractive, things that we're attracted to and want to avoid. And acquire. Okay. See, I just came up with this morning, so I haven't really developed. And I didn't think I was going to give a talk today anyway, so. So, F-O-A-M, feeling of attraction, so then we want to acquire it. Or feeling of aversion, so we want to avoid it. And then mind. And as the Buddha taught, all that we are is a result of our thoughts, our minds. That's where we're creating the stuff from which we speak, from which we act, or don't act. But those are part of our instincts, a human condition to what? To just exist, but without awareness. So the Buddha became the teacher, the spirit that awoke and then shared that awareness with others to help the liberation of human life. So this is, again, how in our tradition we emphasize it with thought of gratitude. Okay, so once again, our religious life should not take pride in mere philosophy or dogma alone, but should reach into our daily lives to transform our seemingly independent, isolated existence, to hear the teachings of the Buddha and awaken to the truth of our interdependency, thus promoting peace, giving comfort, living responsibly. So living and saying the Nembutsu becomes our religious life. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Naman Butsu. Naman Butsu. Naman Butsu. Naman Butsu. Okay. Well, again, thank you for joining us today, and hope that you'll appreciate your life. AOL. Join the AOL. Anyone want to share anything about? Yes.
I apologize, the heater's not on. It's freezing in here. It's really cold. Sorry, it's not normally this cold in here.
Well, for me, it's just right. So Elaine and I, we fight over the thermostat, just like my wife. So anyway, normally we'd have refreshments, but today we're in this situation, so we'll just appreciate the refreshment of being here together and not breathing on each other too much. So what was your name again? Yeah. Luis, okay. So Luis is from here, and Avery's from San Luis Obispo, and what were your names? Anna and New York.
And I'm Vaxina from Maine. I'm from
Oh, okay. Wow. New York and Maine. And then Megan from Mountain View, and Peter's from here too, and Chelsea's from here, and Kevin's from here, and this is Keith and Leo, and I'm Ron. So here we are, due to causes and conditions. We never know. Okay, take care. Thank you.